Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting for Monday, September 26th, 2016. Calling the meeting to order. We do have a quorum present. First item on the agenda is approval of regular meeting minutes of September 12th, 2016. Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? The meeting minutes are approved. We have one item for consideration tonight, Ordinance 123-016, granting a special use for a Type 2 restaurant, Vietnam Nam, at 618 and a half Church Street. The Zoning Board of Appeals and City staff have recommended adoption of the ordinance granting special use approval for a Type 2 restaurant at 16 and a half Church Street in the D3 Downtown Core Development District. The applicant has complied with all zoning requirements and meets all of the standards for a special use for this district. I have also requested suspension of the rules for introduction and action. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Okay. Did we have the applicant here? I'm not sure if we did. I see a little movement out there, but in any event, I see no lights. I think he might be coming. Okay. All right. Nam Nam? Vietnam Nam? Okay. I think you're our applicants, right? Welcome. There's a motion and a second to approve and introduce your proposal. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the business?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Noah Bleicher. I'm the co-owner of Vietnam Nam. We've been operating as a catering company out of the formerly Now We're Cooking incubator space here at Payne. And we have signed a lease at 618 and a half Church Street to move into the previous Funky Monk restaurant. We are seeking approval from the council so we can have our building permit and then begin very light demolition, a very light cosmetic renovation, and then we hope to be open before the end of the year, sort of depending on how the contractor schedule lines up. The plan is for it to be a quick service restaurant, so a lot of counter service and takeout, a lot of delivery, and then we'll continue the catering operation that we've been operating for the past year, primarily through Northwestern University, and then also sort of spreading our wings through the rest of Evanston and hopefully up to the North Shore and then down to the city of Chicago. So with a little bit of luck, hopefully we'll make this our very first of many Vietnam Nams, but we're very happy that this was started here in Evanston, and we are very excited for our very first store to be here too.
Great, thank you. Alderman Fisk?
Yes, I'm just wondering where your delivery trucks are going to park?
Sure. So at the moment, we only have one van, and we just actually secured parking today at the northeast corner of Chicago and Church. So they have monthly parking there, so we've covered parking all through winter, thankfully.
Good.
And so that's where we have our one. And then in terms of pickups and deliveries, there's a little what I call a horseshoe alley behind all those restaurants. And so all the vans and anything that's being delivered to us, vendors of ours, would pull their trucks into the back. So nothing will be parked on Church Street.
Okay, thanks.
Very good, thank you.
My pleasure.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, it will be before the council a little bit later this
Great,
evening. Thank you. The item we have for discussion is a discussion of the North Downtown Area Planning. Staff was recommending City Council direct staff to amend the 2009 Downtown Plan to add new sub-areas covering the geographic area roughly between Emerson Street to the south, Foster Street, CTA Station to the north, et cetera. So I do believe that we have a presentation, and I will defer to the presenter to provide us with that information. Mr. Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Mark Munzer, Director of Community Development. I just have a brief presentation to get everybody up to speed as to where we're at on the North Downtown planning process. Those will be the topics that we will briefly discuss. How we got here is through, as you're all well aware, a proposal at 831 Emerson that was ultimately denied by the City Council. That at the February meeting there was discussion about their need for a community plan north of Emerson Street as the existing downtown plan ends on the south side of Emerson Street. So we came back to you in April with some demographic data, some CTA data, and requested that we go out to the community for a few meetings to get their impact on what they would like to see. So those two meetings occurred in May and June of this year. In May, we had about 75 residents and stakeholders up in the Parasol room. And that meeting primarily focused on a macro level. It looked at what the planning boundary should be, and then really major themes. What type of uses should be in this area, and should there be sub areas within this larger downtown planning area? So there was very good feedback at the May meeting. In June, we gathered again, a little less in number, but still a good turnout, and that looked at more specific development sites. So within the proposed planning boundary, which I will get to on the next slide, I believe, there are development sites that staff has had conversations with entities about future land use entitlements, changes in the land use. So we focused on those sites and what the community wanted to see in terms of density, in terms of massing, in terms of building design. So we solicited feedback that way, and then of course we did virtually, as we always do, through an email address and through our website. As part of the process too, you directed us to talk to the major property owners in this north area, which if you look at that map is north of the red line on Emerson, predominantly the black areas that are outlined as potential development sites. We had a meeting with Northwestern University regarding their facility at Engelhardt Hall and the parking lot. The university indicated to us that their focus from now and through the next 5 to 10 years is on undergraduate student housing. Engelhardt is a graduate resident facility targeted mainly for international students, as I understand it, and that the university's focus will not be on the renovation or redevelopment of that site, but university officials recognized the potential mixed-use opportunity that could ultimately exist either on Engelhardt or the adjacent parking lot. 831 Emerson, as I noted, was the previous development that was denied by the council. They have subsequently met with staff on a few occasions about a new proposal. We do anticipate that coming to us in the next few months. As I understand it, it would be a mixed-use development. It would not be targeted towards students. It would be more of a traditional apartment building, and it would have ground floor retail. But again, those are initial conversations, and nothing has been filed with the city. Finally, the Ridge and Emerson Shopping Center, which is at the northeast corner of Ridge and Emerson. We had a conversation with them. They noted that it is a fully leased shopping center. They recognized and have been approached apparently by various entities about redeveloping that site, but it has always been in conjunction with the properties to the east up to Prim Tower, not including Prim Tower. So the North Downtown Plan, again, the recommendation would be to amend the existing plan. You'll see there the existing plan was adopted in 2009, and it has a series of sub-areas from A to M, going from central core, which would allow the highest density, to more medium range, to more neighborhood business district, which would be 3-4 stories in that category. So what we were looking at was, again, to amend this plan to recognize that there was development interest in the area north of Emerson Street, and that there was interest in making sure that it was as compatible and contextual as possible with the residential areas that surround it. And there highlighted would be the starting point. Again, I will emphasize that this is just a beginning conversation. If you were to allow this to proceed, we would continue to refine this proposal, and we would take it to the Plan Commission likely the later part of this year, depending on their schedule. Yes, Alderman. So this is actually, I'm going to go into that. This is the specific, that's the same area, Alderman. So what that does is that identifies the sub areas that are being recommended. There was a recognition from the community and the stakeholders that to look at this area, again, bounded primarily by Ridge, Emerson, the alley just to the west of Sherman, and Foster and around the L station, that it couldn't be viewed just as one big site. That properties fronting Emerson probably made more sense to have a little bit more density, and the properties surrounding Foster, Maple, and a bit to Emerson across from E2, a little bit of less density. So just briefly, the N area, and again, this lettering comes from the existing plan. So ironically, the next letter was N. So that would be proposed to be an N sub-area, again, focused on TOD development. It would recommend mixed uses in that N area. The beginning conversation that we heard from the community and from what we recognize from talking to developers would be in the range of somewhere in 6 to 12 stories, but again, would be subject to review certainly by this committee and council and by the Plan Commission. As we got into this, that NA area, which is the hatched area north of N, north of the green, is we felt that even though that was, as far as Northwestern's property, one property owner, that it wasn't appropriate to have the 6 to 12 story recommendation fronting on the south side of Foster, that was too much massing and bulk and was not compatible with the residential that surrounds that part of the community. So there's a brief description that notes that while density could be accommodated much farther back in that NA hatched area, that it would be more likely a traditional neighborhood business district, somewhere in the 4 to 5 story range. The O area, which is the area to the west, which includes the shopping center at Ridge and Emerson, and then a series of residential homes, and I believe a church on the north side of Emerson Street, would also be viewed. It's called transitional, but mixed-use development. It would be a slightly less density as proposed. It would be about 6 to 10 stories. Again, we wanted to, we recognize that there may be concern on the higher end of that limit, but we felt that at the beginning of this conversation that we didn't want to limit it too much in terms of the height. And again, what we heard from the community was if you're going to have contemporary design, it was more appropriate towards Emerson, and as you get to Foster and Maple, that it be more traditional brick, masonry, that type of material. P is the area in brown, so that would be the west side of Maple Avenue and then the north side of Foster. So we view that as traditional, and that is, again, typically in the 4, 5, 6 story range. I would think more appropriate probably in the 4 story range. In and around the L station, we have had conversations with the property owner just to the west of the Foster L station about a desire to redevelop that property, and that was from my recollection, a 4 story proposal. So again, what we heard from the community was, yes, we recognize the desire to be near transit, but even though that's the area right next to the station, that's also right next to the residential neighborhoods and much lower rise residential, so it wouldn't be appropriate in all likelihood to have large development north of Foster. Finally, Q is something that was brought in at the last meeting that we had. Q is a bank parcel and also a restaurant. Economic Development has indicated that there has been interest in the parcel, but that given its unique configuration, that it would be difficult to develop given the residential property to the east. So the Q would involve the vacation of Benson up to Emerson, and even though that yellow kind of shows it going into Emerson, by no means is that note to close Emerson. It would just be to vacate that small portion of Benson to make that site more developable. So as proposed, again, this is a very beginning part of the conversation. This is not a request for rezoning. I would say that if you did decide to proceed, that if a plan for the north downtown area was adopted, that subsequently we look at the underlying zoning. Because as you're all well aware now, we have a little bit of a conflict between our existing downtown plan and what our base zoning is. So I would recommend that if this plan were to be completed, that we look at the entire downtown plan, including this area, and revisit our base zoning so that we don't have as much of a conflict between the two. So the tentative timeline would be to take it to Plan Commission, again, November, December of this year, and then bring it back to the committee sometime in 2017. I'm happy to take any question.
Okay, so the intention, next step would be the Plan Commission this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I see no lights.
Wait, could I ask a question?
You can.
Could we just go back to that other slide that no, yes. So what is the blue area up there that goes to the west side of Orrington Avenue?
That, actually, that is not correct. That was an initial, this is how it is proposed.
Okay, this is fine. The other one worried me.
Correct.
Okay, okay.
That was a previous version, this is the version.
So we'll be alerting the neighbors to this opportunity then to go here, give testimony or whatever, the Plan Commission, that'll be their first sort of official opportunity to respond to this concept?
Yeah, so typically we wouldn't do a special announcement of a plan commission hearing, but we will follow the same notification process that we did for the 2 community meetings to
Right.
make sure the neighborhood is aware.
Okay.
Alderman Holmes?
I was just going to say to Alderman Lavelle, the meetings in May and June, which were attended by residents from lots of wards, I guess, but certainly the 1st and 5th, and I believe the 2nd, because the lines go, it's very interesting the way in which the ward lines are drawn here, because if you go to Emerson, Emerson and Maple, on the west side is the 5th ward, but on the east side is the 2nd ward. But then when you get to Foster, the 2nd ward ends on the south side, I believe, I'm correct, of Foster, and then on the north side is the 5th ward. And so, it's really very interesting in terms of how that, so we would want to make sure that everybody understood and that all the residents over there would be notified. But there has been input in terms of developing this. So the first one that was, where were you, Judy? If you remember, that was sort of talked about when we were having those first meetings, and taking the line all the way up to Noyes and back over to Hun Ridge. But then this is sort of came out of those 2 meetings. So it's been community input. I just want to make that real clear, that there has been community input all along.
Okay, no further lights, Mr. Munzer. So you will proceed with the next steps?
Yes, and I'll provide an update once we get this scheduled for plan commission.
Okay, thank you. Any further communications?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn? All right. Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, we will adjourn until, let's say, 7:40, at which time the city council meeting will resume, and hopefully we'll get our business done quickly so we can all adjourn to our respective viewing locations for the evening. So, thank you.